Let me just say that it is false to say that Doug's biomechanics for bodybuilding, and it's false to assume that the physics of resistance exercise is meant specifically for bodybuilders. So that has to be explained. Physics is physics, and resistance exercise for a particular muscle is intended to make that particular muscle stronger, bigger, whatever you want to call it, to optimize the stimulation to that muscle so that you can then do whatever you want with that muscle. If you want to apply it at a particular sport, you can, better than you would have if you hadn't done that exercise. And of course, it also does what it does in terms of muscle growth. The problem that some people have is that they try to find the generalization, and they say, should athletes or beginners do compound movements? And I would say, well, it's false from the beginning. Some yes, some no. It depends on the exercise. It depends on the application. So, for example, I would say that there is more value in learning how to do a barbell squat for an athlete than there is in that athlete learning how to do a barbell bench press. I would argue that a barbell squat is more athletic. And I would also say that a dumbbell press is more athletic than a barbell press. You are more apt to encounter something similar to a dumbbell press out on the field than you are a barbell press. When you're on the field, you're not going to have a bar. You're going to be hitting different things at different times. Independent arm things are going to be happening, right? So that's a perfect example of how you can't lump a barbell bench press together with a barbell squat, because they're vastly different in their application, even though they're both compound movements. And people are trying to generalize and go, oh, well, all compounds includes squats and barbell. No. Yes, barbell squat would have a good application in sports. And dumbbell presses would have a better application in sports than a barbell bench press would. And a pistol squat would, in fact, be very applicable and useful for some of the sports you're using. And I never say they don't. I never say there's no use for a pistol squat. What I say is if your objective is to work the quadricep or the gluteus, the pistol squat is not the best way to do it. Not only from the perspective of stimulating participating muscles, but also from the perspective of, is it the safest way to do it, right? So if you're playing a sport, to some degree, safety goes out the window. In other words, a baseball pitcher knows that activity itself is unsafe, right? So he's obviously not prioritizing safety. He's prioritizing output, right? At the risk of safety, and the preparation for an unsafe movement might require some unsafe training. So that's understandable. But the thing to remember is the BRIG20 is not necessarily the thing that we would have everyone doing for every particular thing with no additional training.
Skill move.
Right. However, every single exercise of the BRIG20 would be useful to every single athlete. So what I would do if I was training a baseball player for batting is I would say, okay, we're going to do what might be considered a standard torso rotation. Under normal circumstances, we would keep your hips and your legs perfectly stable, and we would just rotate from the waist up. But because we're applying it to baseball, we're going to have you sort of simulate what you do on the baseball. So you're going to go ahead and rotate your hips, and then you're going to rotate, and you're going to move, shift your leg weight. You're going to do kind of what you do when you're batting, but with cable resistance. So it's still not far from a standard torso rotation, but now it's got a slightly different application. So the one thing that isn't correct is the idea that a compound movement creates more muscle tension. Muscle tension has nothing to do with the fact that you're using a barbell or the fact that more than one muscle is working at one time or more than one joint is working at one time. It has to do entirely with the physics of that particular muscle's limb, period. You can get more tension in some cases, in most cases, with an isolated exercise for that muscle, because you don't have to compromise its tension, because you're trying to do 2 and 3 things at one time with one single direction of resistance. It would be wrong to think that compound movements are better for athletes as a broad generalization because they create more strength or because they create more muscle tension, that would be an inaccurate statement. But it would be accurate to say that some things that simulate it's on the field, like a squat, like a pistol squat, or some variations or modifications on one of the BRIG20 exercises that make it more like the thing you would typically be doing.
To work with us or to learn more about our method and the BRIG20 exercises, please contact us via smarttraining365.com or email us. Thanks for watching.